goddamn fine beer.
What are you drinking again? Hot Fang?
Mad Elf.
White
Mad
Fang?
Elf. No, Mad Elf.
What?
It's by Trogs. Aspot. He got.
It's a barley one.
You said something about Cat Fang, though. You said that on the Discord.
Oh yeah, that's my cat.
Oh.
Yeah.
I am on the uptake tonight, it seems.
That is my cat. He is a well, he was down there, but there are mice about for him to chase, so Suda caught one last night, but then she let it go and it ran away, and she looked very disappointedly at my wife, who apparently was supposed to catch it.
Of course.
Mommy, you're supposed to chase it now.
Why are you inept at this, Mom?
What?
It's a mouse. I mean, it's like nothing.
How have we not already dealt with this? I'm disappointment. I am disappointment.
Mommy, I catch them, you kill them, and then I eat them. That's the plan.
Well...
Why did you spend all this time teaching me semaphore if you're not going to follow the plan?
All right, now I'm picturing a cat using semaphore, like holding up little kitty flags and doing signals, and I don't know how to clean that from my mind. It's terrifying.
And it's got the really annoyed, pissed off look on its face, like, I really shouldn't have to do this. You should just know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have all. We all either currently have cats or have had cats, and well.
Oh yes, many cats.
They are. They are shitty roommates.
They are. They never pay rent.
Nope.
They poop in the same place all the time, and you got to clean up after them. They won't even feed themselves, despite being able to.
On the plus side, you can leave the house for a weekend, and they'll be fine.
You can. They will. They generally do all. Well, they're fine, but they give you cane about it.
I don't care.
Mine, we walk in. If me and the wife go away for a day, or even go out to go shopping and come back in, we are met with looks of kitty disapproval.
They're not really my cats; they're my wife's cats, so I don't really care if they're disappointed or not.
One of them is mine, but her cats have decided that they are also mine.
Yeah. I get how that works.
And Attila, our biggest of the boys, he's been getting a chubby belly. He's got a little pink tummy now.
How many cats do you have, Kieran?
There are 3.
Okay. That's almost too many cats.
Well, 2 people, 3 cats. That works all right, I think.
That's bordering on excessive cats. You're going to become a crazy cat dude.
I mean, I'm already crazy, and I have cats, and I'm a dude. I mean...
Is that a thing? Crazy cat dude?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Is it?
It's
no,
gotta
for real,
be,
yeah.
man.
I don't know.
The whole toxic plasmosa, the cat scratch toxin that'll actually gets into your bloodstream and makes you nuts. So that actually manifests differently in men and women.
Is that right?
No, yeah, it actually does. So generally speaking, the psychological symptoms in men makes them more withdrawn and antisocial. Whereas, I don't know if you've ever noticed this or seen this happen to a random old lady that you know, but there in certain older women, it'll hit them later on, and it's almost like a complete personality change. And and women basically tend to become more extroverted as a result of it. It's really fucking weird. It makes women more extroverted and go get 'em kind of a thing, but not in a great way. I have no boundaries or brain to mouth filter kind of way.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's the if you've ever seen old ladies trying to grope really young teenage dudes, that's probably what's happening right there.
I have not had the pleasure of observing that.
I've seen that happen randomly, and I was like, "What the fuck is actually happening?" And then I read up on this, and I was like, "Oh God, that's probably what that was." Now I actually feel bad for everyone involved.
You should. Everyone involved is losing in that situation.
Yeah,
everyone involved. That's an L for all.
I was kind of watching. Situation.
I was kind of watching because I wanted to see if Young Boy was going to swing on Grandma, but it didn't happen. So.
Well, your disappointment is immeasurable and your day is ruined.
I mean, I was going to give a statement to the cops, just be like, no, like, I'm sorry, officer, it was just, yeah, no, he hit her. I'm sorry.
I was watching. I was watching just for my own interest, just for science.
Just trying to be a responsible citizen. Oh God, I can't say it without laughing.
Yeah.
So how are you guys faring in this snow?
My kids are happy. They're loving it. They go outside every day without being told to. It's marvelous. I hope the snow never goes away.
I'm kind of happy with it only because I have a snowblower, so my substantial driveway is cleared out in no time, and my truck is 4-wheel drive, so with massive clearance. So I'm just like, whatever. It's just snow to me.
That's pretty awesome.
That's
pretty awesome. It's not the snow I worry about so much as it is the ice.
Yeah.
The ice is what gets you. The ice is what
true.
causes you to break a limb at 5 o'clock in the morning when you're trying to go to work.
This is also true.
Yeah, that is generally true.
That's why I've got that ice chipping tool with the long handle and like the flat like blade that looks like a hoe but bent. Like so it's straight and you just like smash the ice and then you like you chip in it and then you get underneath of it.
Oh yeah, and you scoop it out. Yeah, sure.
Clear it out so you're not trying to break your shovel on it.
Yeah.
This is the most old man conversation we've had.
Well, I mean,
we've been talking about cats and blood diseases, and now we're talking about chipping ice. So we're doing great.
I mean,
I've been using one of those things that you described since I was like 10. So whatever.
That's fair. That's one of those things the younger generation doesn't know about. Though we don't know the name, so who are we to cast aspersions?
Yeah, I don't even know what the fuck you call that thing.
But you know what I'm talking about.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's an ice hoe.
It's not an ice hoe.
I almost guarantee it's an ice hoe.
All right, I'm Googling this.
It's not an auger. No, it's not an auger.
Kieran, if this comes up with like weird links on my Google, I'm gonna be mad at you. All it's giving me is ice hole, which I'm not clicking on.
Flat shovel used to remove ice.
Ice pixel? Ice pick?
Let me see.
I mean, ice pick might be maybe an ice adz.
Ice axe?
Adz. ADZ.
I'm seeing something that's like a snow blade.
Snowblade.
Oh well, I mean that's more metal sounding than what I came up with.
Snowblade is pretty awesome.
Sounds like something out of what do you call it? Finland or some shit.
Yeah, that's definitely a Norwegian black metal band.
Sounds like a motherfucking D&D character, man.
Like somebody who wants to. That's like a ranger name. That's what that is. Snowblade. He's a half elf, and you could tell after you've been playing for the guy that he's got really into Witcher and.
Maybe a little too much.
A little too much Witcher. I started watching Witcher recently, which caused me to break a rule I have about getting into sci-fi fantasy shows because Game of Thrones made me that angry. Yeah. And but I finally started watching it and I enjoy it and it's got that nice episodic vibe. So I don't have to be too invested in the main storyline. I can just watch Henry Cavill grunt at things and then kill them.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that.
And say fuck.
Yes.
Fuck.
Yeah. Like, there's 2 or 3 other plots going around, and I don't care about any of them. Like, there's a princess who has to run away from something and then run towards something, and she has to find Geralt of Rivia because it's her destiny, and I just want to watch him kill demons, or whatever he does. It's kind of like watching The X-Files.
The game is... The third game's really good for that. Like
I've heard that.
I played an ass load of that third game because I got like the complete edition for like $20 well after it come out, and like my wife would sit and watch me play it for hours. She loved the story. She loved the plot line. She doesn't do well in like 3D style first person games because it confuses her and she gets lost. But she loves watching me play them.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been like, so did you finish playing The Witcher? No, I didn't. Are you going to go back to it sometime? I said, yeah, baby, I cycle out video games. I'll get back to The Witcher. Don't worry about it.
See, you're good. I only have 2 video games, and I'm fiercely loyal to them.
Nice.
It's Crusader Kings and Doom. I don't really care about anything else.
Right on.
Well, I've got many like PS4 games. I just picked up the Game of the Year edition of that Spider-Man game that came out. And,
Oh, nice.
For like $10.
Not bad.
And oh yeah, real good price. And I've been playing through, enjoying it. But I'm taking a break from that. Just because I've had too many fucking things to deal with lately, and I'm just like, oh god, I don't know.
I
Nah,
gotcha.
fair enough.
It's on the plus side, I got my sound system in my living room working real well, so I got.
You were talking about that last time.
Oh yeah, it's down, man. It's really good. So
All right, what was the first thing you played on it?
the first thing I pulled up to listen to it musically, because that's really the test of it, was I pulled up Peter Murphy's Dust album.
Okay.
Which I had bought for my wife many years ago, but because I bought it through Amazon, I retain a copy of it on Amazon Music.
Ah, I see.
Now, she has long since lost that original CD, but I can listen to it via Amazon Music. And it was just, oh my god, man.
So that's your test. That's your test music?
That was my test music.
Good for you. I always use an old copy of Zeppelin 1 when I'm trying to test out a turntable.
I mean...
Nice.
Because I always know what Zeppelin 1 is supposed to sound like.
Sure.
So it's a good test. It's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
By the way, we've been recording for like the entire time as soon as Kieran cleared his thing. So this is all going in.
Oh, well, there you
This
go.
is all going in. All the cat ladies and ice hose. It's all in.
Well, I suppose we should get to our introduction then, Shantwe.
I had a thought about that.
Okay.
Because our introductions have been trending bad and worse with each episode. And I kind of want to push that to the extreme.
Okay.
So let's think about what's the worst possible podcast introduction. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow, man. You're
Yeah.
really pushing the envelope there.
Yeah. Because last time I just did like a dorky high. And, where do you go down from there?
We assign ourselves noble titles.
That's awful.
That's really
is.
bad.
That's
I don't know if I
really
can
bad.
live with myself.
Oh, you don't want to put that all over the internet for everyone to listen to, Mike? What's wrong with you?
I don't know. That frontal lobotomy I was scheduled for just didn't really seem to do the job all the way. Still have executive function left. Woe is me.
Look, man, that ignorance being bliss is one of those great truths of the universe, you know?
So
That's what I was trying to get in on. Anyway.
Kieran, you clearly have a title in mind for yourself. You wouldn't have come up with that otherwise, so...
Oh, no, I would have come up with that entirely and waited till you both came up with some incredibly hideous shit and then tried to top it, honestly. It's called a leading question, counselor. A leading question.
I've lost all faith in you.
Well, that wasn't a very far trip to have to make, so...
No, it wasn't. That's fair. That's fair. What are we talking about?
I believe the subject tonight is the works of Alan Moore and Grant Morrison.
Cool. Right.
Excellent.
That's a true fact. Before we get into that, Kieran, you wanted us to talk about something specific.
I did, and I'm going to have to pull up the goddamn email because...
I already did. I've got it in front of me. You have a friend who wrote a novel and has a whole press kit and all this stuff.
Yes.
And it's available for sale, and you wanted us to...
Talk about it a little bit.
You wanted us to mention that.
I'll mention it, yeah. Give it a quick little...
Give it that good shout-out. So I think we should get that done while we come up with worse ways to introduce our podcast. Because I think Kieran's method was strong, but I feel like we can do worse.
I mean...
Before I start calling myself the Marquis of Briarhaven, I feel like we should try. But anyway, your friend wrote a book. Your friend is named Alden Elway, and
that is their pen name. Yes,
I kind of like the cover on this, honestly.
Yeah, it's actually now I know a little bit of background information on it, and it went on Amazon November 27th.
It did.
This book is a reworking of two previous novels they had published about a decade ago.
Okay.
And then they went back and they reworked it, relooked at it, and the characters had grown in their minds since then. And they just went and reworked it into the story that they really wanted to tell instead of the story that they ended up telling in the first place.
Okay, makes sense.
And the book is called Revel.
Yes.
And I'm not going to lie, I have been kind of messing with my friend over the subject matter of this for quite some while, to the extent that they would not let me read the original copies of it for fear that I would, go all in on them, as it were. And I said, I don't shame my friends on their writing. I shame people I don't know on their writing.
Exactly. You know? There are rules.
There are rules, but essentially, it's a werewolf story.
It's a werewolf romance novel is what it is.
It is.
Don't sell it short. It's a werewolf romance novel.
It is. That, as far as I can recall properly, actually takes place in Pennsylvania.
That's exactly where a werewolf romance novel should take place, is in Pennsylvania.
It is. They did a lot of research for this one. I remember when they were relating to me all the research they were looking into the town that they were putting this story in. So a lot of good due diligence there. I haven't read it yet. I intend to at some point, but
of course, the title is good.
Revel's a good title.
Revel is a good title. The cover is really good.
It is.
I like that color scheme of it, particularly. And it's about like a werewolf culture. So it's a forbidden romance story of a pack of werewolves, which I don't know why that hasn't already existed.
Well, it kind of sort of has. There's a subsection of urban fantasy, which I believe this genre falls into, that...
Yeah, I would say so.
Like, I can't remember what series it is, but one was about, like, a were-coyote who lived amongst werewolves. Mercy something or other, which was werewolf porn.
You don't have to call it out, man.
And then there was the Anita Blake series, which also had werewolves, which was vampire hunter werewolf porn.
Okay.
I don't think this is werewolf porn, but I have not read it.
No, this is reading more like just going by like the back blurb. This is going more like a cover, or not a cover. What am I saying?
Supernatural romance.
Supernatural romance. It's got that forbidden romance angle to it. So it's like the girl who steps outside of the pack. She wants to be free. She meets someone else. There is conflict. Romeo meets Juliet. And then there's an additional plot driver of the werewolves are being spotted, and if the humans notice them, they're going to go full end of Night of the Living Dead on them, and we can't have that. So you've got all the elements of a potboiler here, and if I feel like that would make an interesting story.
I almost guarantee that it is. I've read some of their other work, which, they wrote a kids book with their daughter.
Cool.
Yeah, like they got together and did a project together, and I've been meaning to read their novel in verse, I Girl X, which is
that's mentioned at the bottom here.
Yeah, that one's supposed to be really, really good. I've read some excerpts of it.
A novel in verse. I like that idea. I like it when poems tell long stories, like The Wild Party or Beowulf.
Yeah, Anna's pretty legit. They published. They actually got published when there was a Penzig. They were getting published up, doing articles in the Penzig Independent, which is like a little local newspaper you can buy while you're at Penzig.
Cool.
And even got published in Tiny Homes magazine for when them and their husband made a Vardo, which they were living out at Penzig.
Nice.
A Vardo is a Romani wagon.
Okay, I got you.
Essentially,
it's a little bit like a camper.
A little bit, a little bit. It's what you see in like all the little medieval fictions and stuff that when you see a quote gypsy wagon unquote.
I'm getting Dr. Sleep vibes in my head right now.
Oh,
The combination of the werewolf romance and you talking about wagons is making me think of Dr. Sleep.
Never did get to read that.
I didn't either. I just saw the movie.
Oh, okay.
After Mike and I did that podcast about The Shining, I finally sat down and watched Dr. Sleep, and it wasn't...
I still need to do that.
It's not bad. Like, you sit there and you're thinking, okay, a movie that's a sequel to a movie that was made 40 years ago, the movie sequel that nobody asked for, why? And then you watch it, and it's not bad. I don't like the way it ends, but...
Okay.
Well, I mean...
I don't like the way it ends, but the rest of it, it's a pretty solid story. It doesn't rely on being the sequel to The Shining.
Okay.
And Ewan McGregor is really good in it.
I mean,
Ewan
usually...
McGregor tends to be pretty good things.
Yeah, but it's the best thing I've seen him in a while.
Ooh.
Oh, all right.
Well,
that's an
saying
endorsement.
something.
All right.
Yeah, it's that old stuff. It's that old Ewan McGregor stuff. Which...
Like, yeah, Stephen King stuff, book-wise, movie-wise, sometimes, I mean, The Dark Tower should have been good. Should have been good.
Lots of things should be good, Kieran, but they aren't necessarily.
I mean, true. I mean, but there are some things that you know are shit from concept for beginning to end. There's some books you read and you know are not going to be a good movie.
Yeah.
You know? There's just no way. The source material is so wretched that there's no way it can possibly make a decent movie. So you don't have expectations.
Whereas I feel like in the hands of the right production team, Revel could turn out to be an interesting, like...
oh, most certainly.
Like a B movie, but like a quality B movie. Like,
most certainly.
Like Wolf Cop. Have you guys seen Wolf Cop?
I have not seen Wolf Cat.
You should watch Wolf Cop. It pops on Hulu every now and again. Or it's a quality B movie. It doesn't take itself too seriously. In fact, it doesn't take itself seriously at all. But it just rides that line of being self-parody, where it's like the actual threat is real. It's kind of like Shaun of the Dead,
right?
Okay.
Where like there's comedic elements to it, but the threat is taken seriously. And Wolf Cop works that way. And its humor is very dark, and it's very much a Canadian B movie. But you should check it out. It's one of my favorites.
Did either of you ever see Dog Soldiers?
I heard of it, but I never saw it.
No, I haven't seen that.
So it's a Scottish werewolf movie, and like it takes a while before you actually see the werewolves, but like the practical effects are actually super on point. Like I was actually floored when I watched this movie. It's totally a B movie. But it's actually worth watching for the monsters, which I don't often say about monster movies.
Okay. I respect that. All right, so Alden Elway, Revel, Werewolf Potboiler, available on Amazon. The cover is cool. Check it out.
It is. I wish I could have said I did it, but I didn't.
All right. Hopefully she doesn't listen to this podcast and hate us.
Oh, I mean, you know, she knows me already, so...
Oh, well, then never mind. It's fine.
and Mike as well, so, you know...
It's fine.
I will get around to reading the book.
All right. All right, now let's talk about our ostensible topic, if you want to. Or
sure,
not.
Why not?
We could talk about Pi or Dune.
Yeah. We're going to likely talk about both anyway, but... We still need our deniability that the podcast is not actually around Pi and or Dune.
I'm going to say I really liked the theory we came up with last month, just at the end, which I have dubbed the Pi theory of popular entertainment. That popular entertainment is like Pi. It's basic. You know, it's Pi. But you have to care about the craftsmanship. It's like you know, the Mandalorian, you know. The elements are basic. It's a space western, but you have to care about putting the elements together. Yeah. Otherwise, you get, like, Sara Lee garbage which is, what the Star Wars sequels are. It's just Sara Lee garbage. And you eat
Oh
it.
man, no.
And you put it in your mouth, and it tastes okay while you're eating it, and then an hour later you're like, did I have pie? Did I? I don't remember.
No, I want to say it's worse than that. I want to say the prequels are more like the McDonald's pies you get, like the apple pie, or the Hostess ones that's featured in comic books.
Oh right, yeah, the ones
somehow
that have been
foiled villains from committing crimes.
The ones that are
Spider-Man
sitting,
had Hostess.
Yeah, the ones that are sitting at the bottom of the pantry for a while. You're not sure if they're still good, but you eat it anyway. That's the prequels.
And then you're like, no, it never was good. It just wasn't made worse by time because that's nigh impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, why do my insides hurt?
Pretty much, yeah. Why do my insides hurt? Why have I been on the bathroom for an hour? All right.
A good place to start with our actual topic would be, since we've all three of us have, I'm pretty sure, I know that we've all read him, would actually,
Alan Moore.
Yeah.
Shut up and drink your tea, Alan.
We talked a lot about Watchmen and From Hell in our very first episode,
yes.
Mike. That was kind of our
we did
part of our topic, because both of those things have been made into movies that neither of us,
Yep.
we both had criticisms of. So beyond Watchmen and From Hell, I don't have a whole lot of Alan Moore knowledge. I know he did that run of Swamp Thing. That was the most amazing run of Swamp Thing ever.
Yep.
But I never read
No,
it.
it is actually really good.
It is really good. He got his start in 2000 AD comics, and I think, which, did Judge Dredd and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there
were a bunch of other
reading. Yeah.
There were a bunch of other stories in 2000 AD, which was, it was, I guess the only American equivalent would be like Heavy Metal, the magazine.
Yeah.
But
which started out as a French magazine, but that's news to here nor there.
Yeah, no, there's that too. But I mean, like the 2000 AD also, it had like several different sort of stories or comics within it. It's kind of like a volume that you got, and there was different serial comics happening inside, different storylines. Yeah, anthology. So, but yeah, that was where he got his start. He also had a pretty good run on Animal Man.
Mm-hmm. That was actually Grant Morrison.
I know, but I mean, he what is it? Moore did it as well, didn't he?
No, Moore did not do Animal Man. But it all gets all interweaved. But I'm pretty sure Grant Morrison was entirely the Animal Man. I'm looking at his bibliography right now.
Alan Moore did The Killing Joke.
He did.
He did. And
I did not realize that he did The Killing Joke. The Killing Joke is my favorite Batman comic.
He also did like the best Superman story, which was like for the man who has everything.
Yeah, that one was fire.
Yeah.
That was like that got adopted into a Justice League episode. But it's really, really good.
Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow? That was another. That's a Superman that Alan Moore did.
Yeah. And he did, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
And V for Vendetta.
Which
I've seen, but I've not actually read the book.
The movie's actually relatively faithful.
Yeah.
It's, it's... Part of what's reading the comic that's jarring for me is actually the art style. Is very much almost at odds with the subject matter.
How so?
It's almost like done in pastels. It's very colorful for a story that's that dark.
Okay.
It's the best way I can really put it. So I actually enjoyed the movie more than the comic because I felt sort of tonally that it was more, I don't know, I thought it was more faithful to the subject, to the material. But League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the comic is great. It's actually a fantastic read. The movie was abysmal in part because the comic was actually so good.
Yeah.
They keep adapting Alan Moore books into movies with very mixed results.
It's true. A lot of people were disappointed with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, including people that had never read the comics, because it was a terrible movie, and it basically ended Sean Connery's acting career.
It did, didn't it?
It did. No, it did.
That's bad enough.
We know that for certain now.
Yeah, we do actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he had said in interviews afterwards is that he had pretty much confirmed as much, and there had been a couple of major roles that he had turned down prior to that movie, and he was like, "Fine, fuck it, I'm going to do it," and then it was a bomb, and he was just like, "No, fuck it, I'm done."
Wow, that's terrible.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, it's sad.
Yeah,
I mean, what was the last great Sean Connery movie?
That's a good question.
Because I'm sticking with Hunt for Red October. Everything after Hunt for Red October was kind of a downhill slide for me.
I mean,
that's fair.
I mean, The Rock is okay, but it's almost not a Sean Connery movie. You know what I mean?
The original Highlander, he was really good in that.
Yeah, but that's like early 80s.
That was before Hunt for Red October.
Red October was like
there you go.
1990.
It all blurs together.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is one of those like hero mashup stories.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that on paper should be terrible.
Well, the whole point of the comic, that what he was trying to do was to tell a story with characters that were all within public domain. And if you go and you read the comic, all of the characters they're no longer copyrighted, or at least they weren't at the time when he put the book together. But I mean, part of the problem they ran into with putting the movie together is movie rights are different from print rights. So yeah, they ran into some problems doing the movie adaptation.
Is that why a grown-up version of what's his name?
Tom Sawyer?
Yes, thank you. A grown-up version of Tom Sawyer, which makes no sense, is in the movie. Is that why that happened?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I didn't see the movie based on that having been reported to me. I was like, that's a terrible idea. Tom Sawyer does not grow up.
Yeah.
That's like Superman being evil. You just don't do it.
No, you can, but you can only do it for a very short arc.
You can do it, but it sucks, which is why Superman 3 sucks.
There are a lot of reasons Superman 3 sucks.
That is one of them, though. I would rather watch Superman 4. I've seen Superman 4 many times.
Wait.
Superman 4 is
no.
much better than Superman 3.
Superman 4 is a lot of things. Better than anything else is not one I would ascribe to it.
It's more entertaining than Superman 3, and I will stand
I'll
to
grant
that
it.
position.
I'll give you that,
But
yeah.
that was a canon film, dude. That was a canon film.
Yes, it was.
And while they somehow miraculously managed to make a entertaining as fuck He-Man movie against all odds,
Yeah, that's a strange one, isn't it? How did that happen? Canon films.
80s and cocaine, I would gather.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So anyway, back to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes.
The whole concept of using characters that were in the public domain. We've got Alan Quatermain.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yep.
We've got Captain Nemo. We've got the Invisible Man, and we have Wilhelmina Murray from the Dracula novels.
Yep.
And a few others. Thomas Carnacki. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. That's how I know what I'm talking about right now.
Okay.
We do our research here.
I mean, we do about as good as research as one can expect for unpaid interns.
That's fair. That's completely fair. So, I have not read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I know nothing about it. Tell me why it works. Sell me on this thing.
Well, so basically, the plot of the first book, or the original one, and he since went and did some other ones after this, or some other ones were made after that.
Mm-hmm.
But in the original one, Moriarty. I can't say his name. The villain from Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, Moriarty. Yeah.
Right. Instead of Sherlock surviving, going over the Rickenbach, Moriarty does instead.
Okay, cool.
And then he's like, "Fuck it, the competition's dead. I'm taking over the world."
I see.
So you have this literal ragtag team of these heroes that you named, basically banding together to take him down. And like, it's surprisingly gritty in places. Like, they go and dig up Alan Quatermain, like, in an opium den in North Africa.
That sounds very Alan Moore.
Yeah. He, like, defeats this huge guy by basically taking his laudanum and shoving it down the dude's throat. And then he's, like, sad because he doesn't have his fix anymore. It's like, yeah, it's that kind of story.
Okay, and Fu Manchu is in it as well.
Yes.
Yes. But I can't remember what the hell Fu Manchu was doing in it, but yeah.
You always see him in, like, a few scenes where he's, like, tattooing some guy with, like, a hot iron, and it's really fucking creepy.
That sounds like Fu Manchu.
I do.
There's apparently a sequel that follows events that take place after the fall of the Big Brother government from 1984.
Haven't read that one.
Yeah, I think that may be the Nemo trilogy that follows.
Mm.
Okay.
I do know they also end up fighting the tripods from Mars from War of the Worlds.
Nice.
That's a later one.
That's a later one, but that's the original team.
So this is all the characters having all the fights in all the events, is what I hear you saying.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's like really well-written fan fiction.
Yeah, this sounds like the first postmodern comic book story. This sounds like Alan Moore is to blame for everything that has gone wrong in comic book art.
Alan Moore is responsible, certainly, but the problem, I think, that comes with the whole postmodern comic book scene with after Watchmen came out is really, publishers and the money men trying to figure out, this is what made this successful. It's dark and gritty and da-da-da-da. And
grim dark reboot. Yeah, let's give everything a grim dark reboot.
And it's like, no, it's the subtext that makes this work. It's, it's not the text, it's the subtext. It's the underlying themes, the underlying stories.
You have to make the pie properly.
Yes.
Yep. No, exactly.
You just can't shit in a pie shell and expect it to sell.
Right, okay, so I understand that.
Yeah, the grimdark doesn't really work without, reflection or without, I don't know, I'd go one step further and say dissection. Like, if you're not actually taking apart the elements of a story and trying to examine it and hold it up to the light,
then what's the point of doing the grimdark reboot?
Yeah. Then why are you subjecting yourself to this torture? Like, I mean, gritty for gritty's sake? Fuck that. Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't dissect things purely for the purpose of, hey, let me take this apart like a demented, sadistic child. He's disassembling it to see what makes it work and then putting it back together lovingly.
Yeah, exactly.
So deconstruction, but like with a heart.
Yes.
Okay.
What? I think he goes for synthesis. Like, I think he deconstructs it and it's like, all right, but then let's pick it all back up and put it back together. And what if it was
and this
like
is why it works.
Find the dialectic. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's another way to put it. Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay, cool.
And he's made a career of that kind of thing too.
I was just gonna say that seems to be a through line through his work because, like, he did Killing Joke, which I'm gonna hit the same note here, is quite possibly to blame for everything that's gone wrong in Batman comic books since. Because they've made the Joker Batman's, like, yang duality. And Killing Joke was, I feel like, where that truly started. Because before that, like, Joker is one of many in the Rogues Gallery. But after Killing Joke, which was, what year was that?
85, 86?
88. Okay, so you know what? 88 is what it says here. And that's after Death in the Family or around it, so maybe it's not all Alan Moore's fault, because that whole...
I would put a good amount of it on what's-his-face that did The Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, yeah, Frank Miller.
Frank Miller.
Yeah.
Right before he went over the cliff of sanity, but...
Because everyone they did that in the 80s, and then now we can't do anything else. Like, it's Joker, and I'm so tired of Joker. Like, we watched the Joker movie. We all watched it at my place, like, last year.
We did.
And it's a good movie. I don't hate it. It took me a lot to actually sit down and watch it, because as soon as they announced it, I was like, I don't want a movie about the Joker. I'm so tired of the Joker. He's not really even a character. He's just like whatever you need him to be.
He's a meme.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have any... The fact that he can't remember...
Or doesn't care.
Like, he's not actually a character. He's just a demon. And, having read Kingdom Come, I'm entirely on Magog's side. I sometimes like to annoy Batman fans on Twitter by announcing that Batman should kill people again, and he should start with the Joker. And they get so like, that's not canon! Batman doesn't kill people! Like, he totally did in the initial run on Detective
Oh, yeah.
He did. So did Superman, for that matter.
He had a thing for specifically for hanging people.
Batman totally murdered people.
He did.
And to be perfectly honest, what's more merciful? Capping someone or putting them in a revolving door mental system where, they're never going to get better. They're never going to leave. They don't have a sentence. I mean, you go to a mental institution, you're there till you're, quote, cured.
Right. And it raises the issue of, like, if you look at the legal side of what Batman does, is like, how much evidence has Batman ruined over the course of his career?
And
how many people
also
have gotten away with crimes because of Batman and the justice system? So maybe Batman should just start murdering people. Thought.
maybe he should have gone with that H.R. Giger inspired Batmobile that would have made him at the asylum go, no, Mr. Man, you can't leave.
I like that idea.
Not driving that fucking thing.
I like that idea. Yeah. And having said that, I like Killing Joke because it actually takes the time to, like, hey, here's the Joker, here's how he became the Joker, and invented that whole, like, actually, Batman is the cause of the Joker, and therefore Batman is responsible for the Joker, and all that thing that, we got in the Batman movie. And but I just love the ending of Killing Joke. I love seeing Batman crack a smile and laugh. I love seeing both of them be human for like a second before the sirens come.
It is actually, there's certain interpretations of that particular graphic novel that some people have interpreted it actually that Batman kills Joker at the end.
I'd be good with that. I like that.
But mind you, that's a real subtextual interpretation.
Oh, it totally is, because you don't see anything like that,
Yeah.
And even in Dark Knight Returns, where Joker does die, and that's probably like where the whole Batman doesn't kill people got like slammed and staked like a vampire into the heart of the earth.
No, but he does beat up the destitute and mentally ill within an inch of their life, and then they have to rely upon public health care. So
right, I mean,
I don't know which is more merciful here. Yes, I do.
Yeah, it annoys me. But I do like Killing Joke, and I do like Dark Knight Returns, and I do kind of like Death in the Family. I just wish that we could move past those things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, and this is a little bit off on tangent, but both Morrison and Moore are known for their comic book works. And the thing in comic books is they don't seem to ever be able to move beyond a couple of really popular storylines that they just somehow manage to recycle again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. And Batman's gotten really bad lately. Is that
like someone said to me, well, why don't you read X-Men anymore? I said, because I read X-Men in the 80s and 90s. I've read every X-Men story that's ever going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty on point. It's like there's
Is
only
Cyclops
so many
still a dick?
Yeah.
I mean, does Wolverine still want to fuck his wife? Yeah, all right. Well, then X-Men hasn't changed much now, have they?
No. No, no, exactly. And it's like, is it the same soap opera that it ever was? Yeah. Is there some sort of, like, impending threat that could potentially upend the world order, yet somehow it doesn't quite happen? Yes. Okay, well then, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that raises a whole thing about the whole comic book genre and the problems thereunto pertaining, which gets us into the whole concept of is comic books really just soap operas for little boys, and shouldn't it always just stay that? And maybe the attempt to adult it up is always something that's doomed to become a creative trap.
I think the problem with comics, and Moore and Morrison actually have both avoided this in the way that they write, is that comics don't really have a beginning, middle, or end. It's just unending.
Right.
Status quo eventually returns. When both Moore and Morrison have written runs on a comic, especially Morrison's X-Men run, like, concise, self-contained story. It had a beginning, it had a middle, it had an end.
Okay.
You know, Moore's work, Watchmen, beginning, middle, end.
It absolutely has that.
The Killing Joke, beginning, middle, end. Like, can there be stories told from that point on? Certainly. But could you just read that and never read another thing about Batman or the X-Men and be happy? Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Well, and I think that they're, better than most of the other comic book writers. Like, they're in a very exclusive group in a lot of ways. And, I mean, we've actually sort of hit on this already, that we sort of end up reading their ideas regurgitated in some form or parts of them over and over again. And I mean, and you see that as well. We mentioned Frank Miller earlier. I mean, his run on Daredevil in the late 70s, early 80s, like that pretty much defined Daredevil. Daredevil has never really moved past Frank Miller's work. I mean, like, yeah, other people have come along and had good runs on it and they've done things, but all of it is sort of been in the, like, cast in the shadow of, like, all of the, everything that Frank Miller brought to that character. So I think that, yeah, there are writers that can sort of move beyond the genre, weirdly enough, by actually, like, imposing pretty classic, like, plot elements.
Yeah.
And they leave it open, they leave it open-ended for the next guy to come along, but
you have to make the pie properly.
Exactly.
You have to make
And
the pie properly.
honestly, a shitty story doesn't have a good ending.
No.
You can start with a shaky beginning. You can have a shaky as fuck middle. But if you don't have a satisfying ending, it's like getting interrupted jerking off.
It's the problem with Game of Thrones.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that was a great beginning. Ending, middle was middling, but we had faith in it. And then the last 45 minutes of that just ruined everything.
It's like, were you even fucking trying?
I know why they did it. I get it. But it's the point at which the things that made them clever as TV show producers is the thing that destroyed them in the end. Because they loved going for that shock. They loved going for that shock. And Game of Thrones is good for that at the beginning arc of the story, but not at the end. Of course, we don't know the end of the books because George hasn't delivered them, but that's a topic for another day that we don't want to talk about right now.
He's busy eating fucking pie, man.
He's
seen
eating
that man.
pie. Yeah, he's already made his pie. He's good. He's good.
Like, they made a goddamn cookbook based off of just his descriptions of food in Game of Thrones, and it's a pretty thick cookbook. I've actually made the rabbit stew out. It's quite good. But my point is, you see where the man's interests lie.
In pie.
Yeah.
All right.
Food, and yes. But, no, Morrison...
Let's talk about Morrison. Let's talk about him, because
Now,
I know
Morrison-
very little of his work.
Firstly, Morrison is Glaswegian, which I think says
Oh, okay. Okay. It says that he's Scottish. I didn't know he was from Glasgow.
Yeah.
Oh, he is a Glasgow. He is a Ouija. He's a Ouija.
He's a nut.
He is definitely...
So he's train spotting, is what you're saying.
I mean, train spotting... he shits weirder things in the morning than train spotting. Let's put it that way.
Right. But I'm talking about the accent. Like, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Train Spotting was about peyote, then I think, then you would have Grant Morrison, yeah.
I like where you're going with this, yeah.
And he looks surprisingly good for 60. Do you know he's 60 years old?
Really? Shit.
Grant Morrison's 60 years old. He's born in 1960, and he's 60 now. And, like, dude looks solid.
He probably works
All right.
out. He probably works out.
He does something.
I
It may have.
bet he
He is a
does.
chaos mage, man. I mean, he may have discovered some kind of. Okay. One of I think it's in some ways it's autobiographical.
Mm-hmm.
But one of Morrison's seminal works, in more ways than one, and literally in some cases, is The Invisibles.
Yep.
Okay. I know nothing
And-
about this.
Yeah, that was the series that really put him on the map. He did some work. He did some work before that, but The Invisibles is sort of like what got him attention.
The Invisibles is, and I cannot do a description or summary of it to do it justice at fucking all. I had a roommate who collected the entire trade paperbacks of the whole thing, and I read the whole thing, and I was like, wow, this is a wild fucking ride. Invisibles is about a rebellion society who's fighting against the secret masters of reality.
Okay.
Which may be aliens, may be gods, may be the government, may be other dimensional beings. They're never quite clear because it changes as the story changes. And in fact, one of the primary protagonists in this story, King Mob, is based directly off of Morrison himself.
Mm-hmm.
He actually admitted to using the Invisibles as a magical working to transform his own life.
Interesting.
Like, he wrote in Ragged Robin, who's this gorgeous redhead, and lo and behold, later on in his life, he meets this gorgeous redhead who he ends up marrying.
Okay. Okay.
He writes in King Mob as getting shot in the lung and taken out and injured badly, and he ends up getting a collapsed lung. Very strange line
Okay.
of coincidences, but that looked like the comic was about to be, because Vertigo published it, it looked like it was going to get canceled, and he told his readers in the letters column to imagine a sigil in their head while masturbating to enable the comic to continue going.
Okay.
He is a self-admitted chaos mage.
Okay. I'm getting kind of a William Burroughs vibe from everything that you're telling me right now.
He also...
There's some Nova Express things going on, and I've only made it 20 pages into Nova Express because I can't get any further because I have no idea what's going on.
He also recalls at one point in his time him and his father being abducted by aliens.
Okay. I didn't know that.
His dad was a big conspiracy theory guy about when it came to like Area 51 type places in Scotland and that kind of thing. Morrison is a very interesting character. That said, he did this beautiful run on Superman with this non-canon story series called All-Star
Superman. Yeah.
Which was essentially a love letter to the Silver Age of Superman, and he did it so well. I read it. It was really, really good. He loves comic books.
Okay.
He loves heroes. He's written a book on comic books about mythology and that sort of thing behind it. It is a medium that he adores. Like, they let him write the Justice League, and he did a mini-series within that called JL Ape, where they turn into apes. All the Justice League. They turn into apes. And it worked. It was good.
Okay.
And that's Morrison. Morrison loves the Silver Age. He can write a whacked out, like, pseudo-reality, mystical tome. But then he can go back to a story about members of the Justice League turning into apes.
Okay. That sounds like
Superman gets
weird Silver Age, like, that sounds like a one-off comic book that, like, they did in, like, the 1960s. Like, what if they all turn into gorillas? And they do, because, you know, we have to keep churning these things out. Come up with something else. That's why I keep going back to soap operas for little boys.
Oh,
and
sure,
he
yeah.
does it, and he does it in a way that's not, like, snarky, or, haha, look at how clever I'm being.
It's not, but there's no irony.
No irony.
No,
It is literally, I love what I'm doing. He did a beautiful run that Mike mentioned earlier on Animal Man.
Yeah, and that was actually that, and his run on Doom Patrol, which was also that was also another classic of his.
That's what the current series on TV of the Doom Patrol is largely based off of Morrison's run.
Okay.
And it's funny because Morrison also wrote X-Men, and X-Men and Doom Patrol came out within 3 months of each other. Very similar concepts originally.
Okay. I don't know what Doom Patrol is. I'm practically a noob as far as certain comic book titles
Doom
go.
Patrol, it's a really niche comic. First off,
Alan
Patrol,
Moore had a run on that too, didn't he?
I don't know. I'd have to look that up. But Doom Patrol was billed in the 1960s as the world's strangest heroes.
Okay.
And I mean, they were Elastigirl, Negative Man, and Robot Man. And Robot Man was a full-body cyborg who had his body got destroyed in a car crash because he's a race car driver. Elastigirl was an Hollywood actress who fell into these mysterious vapors and gained the ability to change her size.
Mm-hmm.
And Negative Man was a test pilot, and he flew through a radioactive cloud, which gained him the ability to emit a radioactive entity from his body. And so they saw themselves as like as rejects from society because Negative Man was covered in bandages. Though honestly, Elastigirl could pass for normal.
Mm-hmm.
Robot Man was, of course, a robot man. And then there was the Chief, who was their leader, who was a ginger man stuck in a wheelchair.
Okay.
Not a telepath or no powers, but he was... it came out that he was the one that built the body for Robot Man. So he's a genius.
Okay.
And so Grant Morrison did a run on that. And when he took it over, he came up with such things as a Danny the Street, which is a transvestite piece of road.
Interesting.
I have no response to that.
There is no response to that.
Okay.
I mean...
Okay.
It is what it is.
I think we're saying something about the duality of man.
We are saying things about the duality of man and the paradox of nature.
And apparently we're also saying something about the duality of Grant Morrison specifically.
Actually, funny you should mention that. The past year he has come out as being non-binary.
Okay.
So he goes by they, them. He said he had always felt this way, but he didn't have the appropriate language or social reference to be able to properly identify. Not surprising.
Okay.
I've read his stuff. It's like, oh, well, it was all there to begin with.
Chaos Mage, yeah.
I mean, it was all there to begin with.
He did, he's the chief guy behind Final Crisis as well, Grant Morrison is.
He was, yes.
Now, one of the things that, this is where I kind of get lost in DC, because, there was this was like a big deal, this whole Final Crisis and Countdown to Final Crisis, and after the final Countdown Final Crisis, and there was like one of those things where they weave in a bunch of different books to try to tell a coherent whole story with a beginning, middle, and an end, and throw in as much madness as they possibly can, because they did this in like the 80s or 90s, Crisis on Infinite Earths.
That was the first one. The 90s was a 0 hour, a crisis in time. Then you had 52, which was the reestablishing of the multiverse. And I don't know what the fuck Final Crisis was supposed to do, but it wasn't even the Final Crisis, because then we just recently had another Crisis event which involved the dark universe, which is like the shadow reflection of the main DC universe, except everything in it is horrible and awful, and the heroes are all villains and twisted and fucked up.
Okay. Sounds like that whole Batman Who Laughs thing.
That is exactly that.
I have one of those. I got a free thing for it at my local comic book store the last time I was there.
Yep.
And it mostly just annoyed me.
I mean, oh, well, this is just Bat Joker. Okay.
Yeah, Bat Joker. I don't care.
Okay, look, I'm going to point something out to you. Batman with a Joker problem is not an effective Batman or outplanning anyone, because he's a nutbar and cannot think in logical, coherent methods, so why would he even keep to any kind of long-term goal?
I don't understand any of it. I think it's just like, this to me is that whole Batman Joker yin yang thing. Just like take the two halves and just smish them together, and it'll be interesting for 5 minutes, and then we're going to move on to something else, because that's what this genre does. Like,
speaking from personal experience,
infinite final crisis of infinite finality. We look for that sometime next year.
Times 2 plus infinity.
Bad mental health is not a superpower, okay? I have bad mental health days. I'm not defeating Batman on any of those days.
No.
I'm lucky if I leave my bed on those days.
I feel you, man.
So, no.
Cower before me, mere mortals, and quaver at my lack of executive function.
Look, I have days I can't defeat the fucking shower. I'm not fighting some dude in a leather kink suit, okay?
Like, no, that guy's got a lot going on. I'm not really trying to fight him right now.
Look, I got my own problems. I am not fighting that dude.
Let's leave the billionaire who knows mixed martial arts alone.
He is clearly whooping my ass.
Yes.
And he's got better lawyers than I got, so
True
no.
facts.
Bruce, you need to go back to your dungeon. I mean cave. Yes, cave.
Fucking Alfred's enabling ass.
Of course he is. Yeah, so this is interesting. All right. So what's the through line in Morrison's work here? Is there one? There can be two. We can have two.
Oh, hell, man.
Let's stick to the duality of Grant Morrison.
There has been a lot written about him and just his themes. Like, it's...
Well, okay, so I'll take a stab at this. One thing that I've noticed is he definitely sort of questions the nature of reality.
Okay.
Like, that's definitely a recurring theme. And, you know, there's sort of this concept of, all right, well, let's say the world around us really is what we see. Is that all there is? And the answer is always no, you know, in his work. And that shows up in The Invisibles, certainly. But you also see that in The Filth, which is a crazy book. He did that almost immediately after his run on X-Men, I think because he just basically crammed all the stuff that they wouldn't let him do in X-Men into this book. He gets some real, like, Cold War deprogramming shit, which they also do in The Invisibles.
They do.
Right.
And then, you know, other times I think he's definitely interested in, say, the military-industrial complex. And he has a single volume called We Three, which I have a copy of, and it's a sad story. It basically it centers around these three cybernetically enhanced animals. You have a cat, a dog, and a rabbit.
Okay.
And they basically escape the military installation.
This
and
sounds right up your alley, Mike.
Yeah, no, I know. And they're like trying to find this nebulous place called home.
Uh-huh.
Which they don't really have any concept of. But it actually fits really well in with some of the themes in Morrison's work, because it questions the nature of, like, consciousness and, like, the self. And sort of at the beginning, these animals don't really have a lot in the way of cognition or a sense of self. But as the story goes on, they become more self-aware, and they start to really struggle and are like, no, we're fighting for our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think those are some themes that are certainly present in his work. That's not all of them by any stretch, but
he also did the I don't know if you've seen this on Netflix, Happy.
Oh, I heard about that.
Oh, I've only seen like part of the first season. It's good.
Yeah,
it's good.
Okay,
it's whacked out, but it's good, man.
Okay.
I didn't realize that was him. Okay, all right.
Happy is him. I think if he were pretentious, one would call what he does pointless mental navel gazing. But he's not pretentious about it. He's just... I feel that his works is him trying to work out the nature of consciousness and reality for himself.
Okay.
I really think that for him, a lot of this is... what's the word? Cathartic. There we go.
Cathartic.
A lot of it is cathartic for him working through the things that go on in his head, which are definitely unique and very creative.
No, I agree, and I think to build on what you said, like I think he's trying to find where the dividing line is, between consciousness and reality. I do think that that's a through line in his work. Okay,
that seems like not only a nice serious thing, but like a worthy thing for an artist of any genre to explore.
I think Moore also tries a lot at much the same kind of thing, and Moore also is a self-identified chaos mage. He actually did a comic book series that he actually tried to use to end the world, and it didn't work, but he did try.
Okay,
because
cool.
Alan Moore is kind of a bitter Grant Morrison in some ways.
Alan Moore seems to be not a member of the British Order of the British Empire.
No.
Which Grant Morrison is. Grant Morrison is a knight. He is Sir Grant Morrison.
Yeah, they're on very different sides, so to speak.
But they do interact on quite a number of times. What was that thing that you were telling me about once, Mike? Oh, shut up, Alan, and drink your tea.
Oh, no. That was there was an interview with Transmetropolitan.
Warren Ellis.
Uncle Warren. Warren Ellis. And
is that the guy behind The Boys? Or am I thinking
no, that's Garth Ennis.
Oh, Garth Ennis. Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
So there was this. I heard this audio interview with Ellis, and he was like, "They're like, oh, tell us the thing you said about if Alan Moore calls you," and he's like, "Oh God," and like "Oh shit, you weren't supposed to repeat this in public," and he's like, "Well, all I'll say is that you better have your day free if Alan Moore calls you." And he goes on to do this impersonation of Alan Moore, and it's just like, and he's like, "Hello, Warren. I have recently changed my diet from 30 spliffs a day to 100 spliffs a day and 2 meals, down from 3. And just, and I feel positively energized."
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think Alan Moore is older. I want to say.
Yeah.
Not much older, but 1953. And
so 7 years older.
And Alan Moore is from the north of England. He's not a Scot.
No.
But he's his stories are very, they're apocalyptic.
Yeah.
No, certainly.
There's
Alan Moore does not have a lot of hope for humanity.
No.
And it seems to me like Morrison is always in the process of rediscovering his hope for humanity.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of hope in Alan Moore's work. I mean, I'm most familiar, as I said, with Watchmen and From Hell. From Hell is a deeply, deeply miserable work.
Oh yeah.
fascinating piece of pop history, fascinating thing to look at, but not something you want to read on if you want to have a pleasant day. It's going to leave you feeling cold inside, and it's intended to do that, which means it's a successful piece of art.
Oh yeah,
and Watchmen is not a whole lot different. It's apocalypse is averted, but just barely.
And at what cost?
And it's done by the bad guy.
Yeah.
It kind of basically destroys the whole concept of heroism.
It does. And, go ahead.
You know what they say, be a hero and live long enough to see yourself the villain.
Right, and that's pretty much the arc of that particular Ozymandias character in Watchmen, is he wants to be the hero, he wants to save the world, and he wants to save the world so hard that he's prepared to destroy large portions of it in order to accomplish this task. And he's granted a victory of sorts, but it's a strange kind of a victory.
If I might digress for a moment, I was looking at some art and some pictures from the original Watchmen movie, and I was looking at the actor, and damned if in the later Watchmen series on HBO, which was glorious,
it was really good.
If Jeremy Irons does not look like an older version of that actor that played Ozymandias in the original Snyder movie.
Okay.
I was looking at the actor, and then I was thinking, wow, he looks a lot like a very young Jeremy Irons. Oh, this works really well. That was genius casting.
Mm-hmm.
They did actually do a very good job with the miniseries, I thought. It's more of a sequel to the comic than the movie, because they actually have the squid. The squid actually happened in the miniseries.
So remember how I was talking last time about how one of the things I think The Mandalorian does so well is that my wife, who has no interest in Star Wars whatsoever, loves this show.
Sure.
My wife had no knowledge of Watchmen whatsoever, watched the series with me, loved it.
Yeah?
Loved it. I ended up getting her the graphic novel last Christmas. A copy of that, so she'd have some reference for it. But absolutely loved it. And I'm going to say the miniseries was very faithful. I feel in a lot of ways how Alan Moore would have written a sequel if he, and mind you, Moore panned it, but he pans anything that's a translation of one of his works in the media because he's thoroughly disappointed and a pessimist.
Well, to be fair, they don't tend to do his work properly.
They usually don't.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. Which you said that, Mike, you said that League of the Extraordinary Gentlemen was wretched.
It was.
We both absolutely crapped all over the From Hell movie.
Yep.
In our first episode.
Yep.
The Watchmen movie was okay. Our complaint was that it was too faithful and it got bogged down and it did not movie properly.
Yeah.
No.
Which, it at least was coherent. Like, it told the story of Watchmen.
Yeah. But the miniseries that followed, just absolutely exquisite writing. And I feel like I've talked about this before.
I haven't watched any of them.
It's actually worth it.
Okay.
I was really apprehensive, and I was like, God, do we really need this? But then I actually saw it, and I was like, no, this is legit. It's actually really good.
Right. I've talked about this because I remember having a conversation with you about this once, Mike, about, no, man, you gotta, trust me, this is a worthy successor to the graphic novel, and done right. And, there have been, I've watched, YouTube people that dissect this kind of stuff, just going into the themes and the elements and the Easter eggs of the Watchmen series. And I'm going to say this about, there is not a single wasted scene.
Okay.
Every scene in the Watchmen miniseries has importance.
Yeah, no, it's pretty tight.
None of it is frivolous. It's all Chekhov's gun.
Okay.
It's all. If they show you something and they linger on it, it is going to be important or it is important, and you
All
just
right.
don't know it yet.
All
But
right.
they pay you off. You know, you find out later, oh, this is why they focused on this. This is why this is important. Like, no plot holes as far as I can tell, and no dangling themes. And that's why we'll never get a second season, because the guy that did it's like, no, I have told my Watchmen story.
I respect that. That's what should happen.
Yes. Yeah. He's like, if someone wants to go and do a second season with a different story, with different characters, not my story, go ahead. But I've told mine.
Alan Moore has publicly stated that he doesn't want to see any more adaptations from Watchmen.
Okay, there's a few things, and I don't know that he ever watched the series, but there's a certain things, I think, from Alan Moore's background, I think, that would really much prevent him from attaching or connecting this story.
Okay.
And one of the primary points of the Watchmen series, it is a tale of Black America. And this is not something Moore would have any social connection to or societal connection to, you know, so I don't think he'd understand some of the importance of it.
Okay.
Like, it leads up with an event that most people in America don't even know existed, which was, the Tulsa Massacre.
Right, I remember hearing that it was connected to that.
A lot of people thought that was part of the made-up alternate history of the Watchmen universe, but it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, the guy Lindenorf, the guy that did Lost, the same guy that did The Watchmen, and his writer's room had a lot of representation of the kind of people that he wanted to tell the story of. He's like, I want to tell the story, but I need writers who this is their story to tell so it can get told. You know, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah, makes sense to me.
It's a good story.
Okay.
It's a good story. It
No,
will
it
make
definitely works.
It can make you a bit uncomfortable in places, but a good story will do that.
Yeah, fair. Apparently, Alan Moore is also responsible for the existence of John Constantine.
I think you're right. Oh yeah, he did create him. I think
Hellblazer.
John Constantine came into existence in
Swamp Thing.
In Swamp Thing, in his
In
run
Swamp
of Swamp
Thing,
Thing.
yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Well, John Constantine, which I think Morrison might have written a couple issues of that. I'll have to check.
I would expect so.
Hellblazer? Yeah, probably.
He better have.
Maybe not.
Invisibles, Zenith. Oh yeah, I remember that one. That was an independent one. Animal Man, Doom Patrol, 52 All-Star Superman action comic. No, I guess he didn't. Maybe I'm thinking of...
That's so
No,
disappointing.
Gaiman. I'm thinking of Neil Gaiman.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking of Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
Who followed more on Swamp Thing.
Mm-hmm.
He picked up the reins on Swamp Thing because I think they had worked together also in 2000 AD. The anthology series. Hell, we could do an entire episode on Gaiman.
Yeah, we could. He was the one that basically said Poison Ivy was the May Queen in the DC universe, which
He did.
basically makes her a demigod.
And also his beautiful work on Sandman, which was a beautiful story because it had a beginning, a middle,
and an end.
and then an end.
Well, and he was
This
also
is my
tapping
thing
into
that-
myth for that too, but yeah.
Oh, a lot of, yeah, most definitely. The man, he wrote a short story, and there's this anthology I'd gotten, which was a bunch of authors writing Elric of Melbourne stories, and I got a ton of Moorcock, so that didn't sound right. But
I know what you mean.
Gaiman wrote a short story in it called Childhood by Moorcock, or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Which wasn't so much a story of Elric, but a story of how, Moorcock's Elric influenced him as a young adult and child. And, oh my, you're stuck. Hold on, buddy, I got you. There you go. Sorry about that. Moorcock would be also an excellent subject for another time. But
Yes. Yes, I agree with that.
Because Morrison grabbed a lot of a lot of influence from Moorcock for a character he created that was in Invisibles called Gideon Stargrave, who was a character who was written by King Mob, who is a character who's written by Grant Morrison, and King Mob and Stargrave are both in-author inserts for Morrison. But Stargrave is based off of this character whose name I cannot remember.
Is it Jerry Cornelius?
Yes, Jerry Cornelius from the.
I thought so.
Yeah, it's based off of Jerry Cornelius from Moorcock's series that he did, which was, what was it, the Color of Music or something like that.
I've got the first one. Like,
I guarantee.
On my yeah, I read that one in like the last 2 years, and I was like, "What is happening?"
Well, I had gotten a collection of British edition Moorcock stuff, like all of it, when our mutual friend Mr. Black moved to Australia, or was it Florida? I don't know which. But when he moved, I inherited all his British sci-fi.
Nice.
And I still have it to this day, and it was primarily Moorcock.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where the first volume of the Jerry Cornelius books came from, but I definitely read it in like the last 2 years, and it was pretty crazy. But like also at the same time, I was really impressed with Moorcock, because like most of what I've read of his has just been all like the Elric stuff.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed by how completely different it was from the Elric stuff.
Well, Elric is an aspect of what Moorcock calls the Eternal Champion.
Right.
Which
so
is
Jerry Cornelius.
Yes, which is the hero of many faces.
Yeah, hero with 1,000 faces.
Yeah, the hero with 1,000 faces. And I do love when authors tap into that and do that well. He had a character, Moorcock had a character, Cain of Mars, who essentially is a ripoff of, well, John Carpenter, Warlord of Mars.
Sure.
But a really good ripoff, because I've seen very bad ripoffs of John Carter, Warlord of Mars, and we call that the Gore series. Which I hope we never cover on this podcast. And that this is the only reference it ever gets.
Oh.
That's the laugh I make when something I deliberately forgot comes rushing back because somebody brings it up again. Damn. Oh, well.
I have no idea what any of you guys are talking about.
Good.
I've heard of
Remain innocent, remain innocent.
Don't do it. Just
remain
don't do
innocent,
it.
Sweet summer child. Remain innocent. Your life will not be enriched or enhanced by this knowledge.
Okay.
It is the literary opening of Pandora's box.
Okay.
Except Hope escaped too.
Okay.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm gonna respect your judgment.
There are times not to. In this case, yeah.
I have faith in you.
So I was thinking maybe I would try to, I don't know, sort of summarize a little bit for both Mr. Morrison and Mr. Moore.
Okay.
So I think one of the things that Alan Moore does, or the setup for a lot of his stuff, is it's more like, here are the consequences of where we begin. You know, here are the consequences of the world such as it is.
Uh-huh.
And he essentially follows events to their logical conclusion. You know, and it's not that the characters don't have, you know, agency or free will, and it's not that, like, random things don't happen in some of his stories, because there is that element. But he narratively is much more focused on sort of, I almost want to say like the consequences of modernity, or the consequences of society.
That sounds about right.
Whereas Morrison is more, I think, focused on, you know, like transformation, or trying to sort of get to the root of what's really real. It's a lot more sort of reflective or internalized, and it's not really. I would say that a lot of Morrison's work is amoral, or it's not like passing judgment, whereas Alan Moore's work is extremely judgmental.
It is extremely judgmental. I would agree with that.
So I think this was. So I mean, yeah, they're an interesting juxtaposition. They're both great great authors. Like, they're great. I love their work.
So one could be characterized as a sage, exploring the roots of reality, and the other, an angry prophet preaching Jeremiads.
Yeah, no,
I'll go with that.
I went biblical.
Yeah, no, that fits.
Yeah. All right, I like that. I like that setup, and I want to talk a little bit about. We should definitely talk about Michael Moorcock in another.
Yeah.
Another.
He might
That would be fun.
He might deserve his own episode.
Because
really.
I haven't read any of him, and this will give me an excuse to read some of his stuff.
Both me. Well, crap. We're in a no contact situation. You can find stuff online.
I'm sure I can. Yeah, he's well known. So that would be worth doing, and I like the through line and the summation here. And one thing I'd like to comment on is that both of those things seem like really good uses of the comic book medium.
Yes.
Especially Morrison, like if you're gonna like hit that line between like reality and consciousness, comic books, which is both visual and literary, seem like a useful, a good medium to explore that. And as for vivid denunciations of the modern age, that also works for comic books. So maybe there's potentiality in the medium that isn't just soap operas for little boys.
Well, because comics are, and you have a point there, soap operas for little boys are viewed that way, you can explore a number of subversive and reality-bending concepts, really. And no one's going to take it serious because it's what?
Soap
operas for little boys.
And, yeah, so I think I think we've hit that hour and a half moment.
Yes,
we have.
We've hit that, and we never came up with a better way to or a worse way to introduce the podcast. So,
I mean,
we're just gonna have to go with what we did and just leave it as that. So,
I think it'll work, or maybe you could do a voiceover later.
I probably will. I'll probably chop it up and just like throw in the introductory music at 5 or 6 different intervals whenever there's a quiet moment, so that nobody actually knows when the podcast is being introduced.
You did a pretty good job on the editing last time.
Oh, thank you.
The only reason
really
even knew that things were not necessarily exactly sequential is because I was there for the recording.
Well, of course, I do chop out a lot of dead space and ums and ers, and sometimes if a topic is really like, if it is going nowhere and kind of slowing things down, I do excise certain things.
Yeah,
but it was
right on.
But I find it like content wise, just because I'm there for it, and I still go back and listen to it later with my wife.
Well, that's good.
No, I go back and listen to it as well.
I always go back and listen to our old episodes because I enjoyed listening to us talk. We're kind of interesting. I hope other people think so.
No, I'm just gonna
as well.
reach and pet myself on the back.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's not what I'm petting.
Feel,
Not my back.
dude. You do that on your own time. How many times have we been over this?
Never.
Well, it's unspoken, Kieran. God.
No, it can't be unspoken, because if you don't speak it, I'll do it. I mean, look, I'm not going to say I masturbate during these podcasts.
You just
but I'm not
did.
going to say, but I'm not going to say I don't either.
This is why I edit things. This is why
some things never change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, man, if it was easy for you, then what sense of accomplishment would you have on the editing?
Speaking of the boys, am I right?
Touche, sir.
Yeah, no, right, yeah.
Oh, God.
That's
Ennis,
a throwback to the first episode. Yeah.
There you go.
Ennis also did Preacher. Oh, God.
Yeah, he did. He did.
I have not decided if I like Preacher or not.
Did you read the comic or you
I've
watched
read
the show?
some of it, and I got into the first season of the show, and I kind of liked it, and
It's a different take on the story.
I kind of just didn't decide if I cared or not.
Well, one of the hallmarks I've noticed of Ennis's work, because he did a really good run on Ghost Rider, but and he did a little Western themed one called Trail of Tears, but Ennis has a lot of implied or outright stated sodomy in his work, like a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
does seem to be a feature.
More than one would normally run into with a bunch of rednecks. even by Deliverance standards, it's a little heavy. Yeah. Even by those standards, a little heavy. He got that boy got issues.
I definitely ended up enjoying Preacher the comic way more than I thought I would. It took a while for like the actual mythos to take off for me, like reading it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But once you sort of get into about halfway through the series, you're like, oh wow, this is really, he really put a lot of thought into this. This is like, because there's a lot of shock towards the beginning, and I mean that's also just some of what Enos does. But then
Like
you realize, like, you know, hey, this is actually not superficial. This is just like a real crapsack world that he's writing about.
He did write some of the better issues of Punisher.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Like he did one of the quintessential runs on Punisher. Welcome Back, Frank. But Enos doesn't like superheroes, at all, in the least. And the boys,
one can tell. That's kind of what The Boys is all about.
That is exactly. I feel that in some ways that Butcher is a fill-in for Enos himself. I cannot confirm or deny this. I feel that Carl Urban, because I've watched some of the Amazon series, I feel that Carl Urban just, as he always does, because he's a beautiful Dredd as well, just really gets into that role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was great in the Judge Dredd Dredd movie.
The Judge Dredd movie was really good.
Dredd was good. That was really
one
good.
of those. That was one of those things where you watch it and you're kind of surprised that it didn't take off better.
Yeah.
It has become something of a cult classic because everyone who's seen it was like, that was really good.
Well, it's a Tower Siege movie.
Yeah,
like that's most of the movie. No, yeah, I mean,
but that's a good
legit.
idea for a Dredd story, and I'm not super familiar with the Dredd world, but I understand the basics of it. I think I've read one or two of them.
Dredd is very cyberpunk dystopian, but in some ways very wacky and strange in ways.
That's a good thing.
And but if you focus a little bit too much on the wacky and strange, you get the Sylvester Stallone film, which a lot of the shit in there was canonical to the lore of Dredd.
That was the whole problem with that movie, was that Sylvester Stallone didn't want to wear the helmet.
Well, you can't be the law and not wear the helmet.
He didn't want to wear the helmet because he's Sylvester Stallone. You know, this is like Carl Urban. He was willing to wear the helmet and never take it off.
He has a copy of it still. They let him keep one.
I would.
They let him keep one.
That's good.
They also let him keep one of the lawgivers, or lawbringers that Gunny had. I was watching a YouTube thing where Carl Urban was going through the various sci-fi and fantasy movie props he's collected in his career.
Oh, go ahead.
He was in Chronicles of Riddick. He was in Lord of the Rings. So he,
Judge Dredd also came out of 2000 AD.
Yeah, it did.
It did.
Yeah,
it started in 1977.
And I'd have to go back and look at it because it's been forever. There was a really good series in 2000 AD, I think it was in, but it was definitely a British comic called Nemesis the Warlock. Mm-hmm. And the band Shriekback back in the 80s did a song about it. And it's called Nemesis. And you've heard it before, Mike.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that track. I know. Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. British. I really feel that American comics benefited tremendously from the British invasion we got in Vertigo.
Yeah,
we got a lot of good. I mean, even with Marvel Comics, when they got Simon Furman over from when he was writing the UK Transformers stuff, he came into the American Marvel Transformers stuff and really transformed it with the ideas he had. Furman came up with a lot of. He took the concept mythic. Mm-hmm. He created a mythology where before there really didn't exist much except like, hey, we're selling toys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Transformers exists because some Japanese toy makers got some molds for some G.I. Joes in the 60s and kind of
Yep.
went a little crazy with it, and it ended up being this kind of one of the great back and forth shifts of culture from across the Pacific, kind of like what we
Yep.
were talking about last month, where this one thing got moved from Japan to America, and then America to Japan, and then Japan back to America. It's that Yojimbo fistful of dollars dynamic that sometimes happens.
So, I had to go back and rewatch this again. The episode where Rosario Dawson was in it, and apparently someone had matched up scene for scene a couple of frames from Yojimbo and that episode.
Which episode are we talking about? Of what?
The Mandalorian.
Oh,
It's the one, the Jedi. The episode's called The Jedi.
Right.
And there's a couple scenes towards the middle to end of it that match up nearly frame for frame for Yojimbo.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because I was watching. My two daughters have both gotten seriously into the Clone Wars, like the Clone Wars series, and it's on Disney Plus now, and they're watching it. And there's one episode in the middle of nowhere where there's suddenly like 4 bounty hunters and 3 Jedi defending a village farm against thing, and they mentioned there are 7 of them. And I look at my oldest, my 9-year-old, and I say, "There's 7 of them. There's 7." Because she came in while I was watching Seven Samurai and started watching it with me. Just kind of sat down on the floor watching it. And was like, "This is really cool." And I was like, "It is really cool." So I was like, "Seven Samurai." And she's like, "Oh." Like, yes, you're about to discover that everything is a reference to another thing. I'm sorry, kid. I'm sorry.
I mean, hey, man. It just shows that a good idea can be reskinned infinitely and work.
Oh, sure.
But you have to put the pie together properly.
But you
Absolutely.
have to put the pie together properly. What are we going to change the name of this to Shallow and Pie-dentic? Probably not.
Kieran, you're banned.
I think your cat demanded an explanation
You're
for that
banned,
one.
Kieran. That's it. That
was my wife's cat.
I was going to say, if you guys like Yojimbo, though, watch the sequel, which is Senjuro. I've never seen it.
I've never seen that one.
It is actually the sequel. It's, yeah.
Does it have the same plot as For a Few Dollars More? Or is that completely divergent?
I
don't
know. I haven't seen For a Few Dollars More. The other thing I was going to say, if y'all were into Dread, if you haven't seen The Raid Redemption, check that out.
The what?
The Raid Redemption. It's an Indonesian movie.
Okay.
It's another, like, tower raid movie. I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to spoil it for you, but check that shit out. It's amazing.
Say it one more time.
It's called The Raid, R-A-I-D.
The Raid...
Redemption.
The Raid Redemption. Okay.
It's there's some great like martial arts action in it. It's really tight.
Okay.
Yeah, that reminds me. Speaking of martial arts, I need to ask my Sifu if he knows the lady that was in the episode of The Jedi of the Mandalorian, the one that's fighting with the Beskar staff, because I believe that's the daughter of his Sifu.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
My Sifu trained under Donna Santo, and that's Donna Santo's daughter that was in there in that fight scene. So I keep needing to get a hold of him and say, hey, do you know her? I mean, I know you trained under her father, but, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of stories I could tell about my own old Sifu. He used to do a lot of stunt coordination and stunt work on a number of movies like Blade and the original Spider-Man, the Raimi one, Jason versus Freddy. He was in Gladiator. He died like 5 times.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I could go on and on about stories about the guy. Amazingly funny individual.
All right.
Amazingly funny. Yeah, but I think that's all we got in the chamber for this one.
Well, good, because we're at 99 minutes.
Right on.
All right, let's put a steak in this pig. Let's put a steak in it.
Yeah, let's cut up this pie and separate it.
Yummy.
Indeed.
Indeed. All right. This has been the never introduced episode of Shallow and Pedantic. I am Andrew.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Kieran.
Thank you for stopping by our weird corner of the internet. We hope you'll come listen to us talk again.